Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Horizon Blinks Back. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1, Burnt Orange Skies. I used to think silence was the purest form of peace. I don't anymore. In silence you hear things. The shift of your own bones. The breath behind your breath. The moment your mind starts pulling away from itself. The last time I truly heard silence was the day before everything started falling apart. It was just after sunset, and the Arizona desert was settling into the kind of dry hush that feels like the earth holding its breath. I was behind the wheel of my car, coasting along Route 180 with the windows down. The hot air had lost its edge, slipping into a lukewarm breeze that smelled like dust and old asphalt. I hadn't slept well in weeks, and yet I wasn't tired. Not in the way you'd expect. Not in the yawn and stretch, warm blanket kind of tired. This was the kind that settled in your bones, that wore your limbs like borrowed clothing and whispered nonsense in your ear when no one else was around. I thought maybe I just needed to get away for a bit, take a drive, clear my head. But that's when the horizon blinked. Not the stars, not my own eyes, the horizon. That endless strip where orange bled into the dusky purple of night. It flickered, like a frame missing from a reel of film. I blinked once, twice. It happened again. A shiver went through me, sharp and immediate, like a static shock on the back of the neck. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. The desert didn't move, but it also didn't stay still. It was subtle, almost too subtle. The kind of thing you could write off as a trick of the eyes. But I knew something had shifted. Something deep. Something real. I pulled over onto the shoulder, turned off the engine, and just sat there. The silence roared in my ears. In that stillness I saw it. Far ahead the sky twitched. Not a star, not a plane, not lightning, just a glitch. A ripple in the atmosphere like a muscle spasm across the heavens. I felt like I was being watched. Not from behind. From the front. From the horizon itself. I drove home fast that night. Didn't look back. Back at my apartment, I found the place colder than usual. Not in temperature, but in tone. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and you're sure someone was just there? Like the air still holds the shape of their presence? That's what it felt like. Only no one had been there. I lived alone. I locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed. Tried to breathe normally. Get a grip, Carter. You're spiraling. I stared at the wall for almost an hour. Didn't even take off my shoes. Eventually, I lay back and closed my eyes. And the moment I drifted off, I was somewhere else. The sky was burnt orange. Same as before, only bigger. Endless. Too wide for any dream. Beneath me was a flat stretch of land, not quite desert, not quite real. The ground shimmered like the surface of a dying screen. There were no roads, no signs, no stars. Just sky. And ahead in the distance a shadow. Thin. Upright. Still. I couldn't move. Not at first. But my pulse beat in my ears and I realized I was standing, barefoot, alone, and somehow being pulled forward. Every time the sky blinked, the figure was closer. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. I woke up gasping, back in bed, still wearing my work clothes, chest soaked with sweat. The clock read 3:11 a.m. I didn't remember falling asleep, didn't remember getting into bed. My shoes were gone. I staggered to the bathroom and turned on the light. My eyes stung and for a moment the mirror refused to show me anything at all. Just a smear of movement behind frosted glass. And then, slowly my face returned. But it didn't feel like mine. It blinked. Part 2, the second fade. For the next 3 days I didn't sleep. Not because I wasn't tired, but because I was terrified of what waited for me when I closed my eyes. I took cold showers at 3 a.m. I drank enough black coffee to poison a horse. I even set alarms to go off every 20 minutes just in case I slipped. But it didn't help. The fatigue dug into my skull, into the folds of my brain, like mold taking root in drywall. At work, I started misreading data, typing things that made no sense. Orange isn't supposed to blink. I'd written into a customer complaint field. I didn't remember doing it. My manager pulled me aside and suggested I take a few days off. I said okay, smiled like everything was fine. But I didn't go home. I drove. Hours into the desert. Past the lights. Past the radio signal. No destination. Just away. I don't remember falling asleep at the wheel. But when I woke up, the sun was gone and the sky was blinking again. I was back in that plane. Barefoot. Staring out at the same impossible stretch of land. And the figure was waiting. Not walking this time. Just standing still. Close enough that I could see it didn't have a face. Just skin stretched over where features should have been. Like something gave up halfway through making it. It lifted one arm, skeletal, almost ceremonial, and pointed behind me. I turned. Behind me wasn't the desert. It was my apartment hallway. Dark. Tilted at a strange angle. Like a memory someone had dropped and bent out of shape. And there, at the end of it, was a door I'd never seen before. Peeling green paint. Rusted brass handle. A number etched into the center. 0. I took one step toward it, and the sky blinked harder. Violent. Like lightning without sound. And I fell. Fell through the floor, through myself, through. I jolted awake, not in bed, but on the living room floor. Face down. Cheek pressed into the hardwood, cold and sticky with sweat. The front door was wide open. My car keys were in the sink. The TV was on, tuned to a dead channel. The static buzzed with something deeper than white noise. I sat up slowly, the air too heavy to breathe. And then I saw it. Down the hallway, at the end, near where the bathroom should have been. That same green door. Just standing there. Close, but not silent. From the other side, I heard something breathing. Part 3. The room that wasn't. I sat in my living room for what felt like an hour. Just watching the door. It didn't belong there. Not just in the architectural sense, though that was true too. My apartment was a boxy one-bedroom with no hallway that long, and definitely no antique green door at the end of it. But deeper than that, something about it felt alien. As if it had been borrowed from another world and placed here as a joke only it understood. I approached slowly. Each step forward made the air feel heavier, like I was walking into a pressure chamber. There was no sound from the other side now. The breathing had stopped. I reached out. My hand hesitated an inch away from the brass handle. It was cold. Not room temperature cold, deep cave cold. Like it had never known light. And then I turned it. The door creaked open. Inside was a room I'd never seen. And yet, I knew it. It was the bedroom from my childhood home. Same faded wallpaper. Same oak dresser with the drawer that never closed right. The same crack in the corner of the ceiling where I once swore I saw something crawl when I was 8. But something was off. The proportions were wrong. The angles didn't make sense. The corners of the room seemed to stretch too far. The bed was missing a leg but still stood perfectly upright. The light from the single window fell in at an angle that defied geometry. And in the center of the room on the bed sat a copy of me. Not asleep. Not awake. Just waiting. It turned its head as I entered. No sound. No blink. Just that motion, liquid and too slow. This Carter, this version of me looked hollow. His skin was pale, almost waxy. His eyes were open but not really seeing. Like he was viewing the world through a thick pane of glass. "I've been here the whole time," he said. His voice was mine but flatter. As if someone had ironed out all the emotion and left only the syllables. I didn't speak. "You left me," he said. "You always leave me here." "I don't," my voice cracked. "I don't know what this is." "It's the inside of you," he said, tapping his temple with one slow finger. "The part you shut away so you could keep functioning." I felt myself step back, but the door behind me had vanished. "This isn't real," I said. "It's more real than whatever that bank office is," he sneered. More real than car keys and broken coffee makers. He stood now. The air seemed to bend around him. "You thought this was about nightmares?" he whispered, approaching. "But it's not. It's decomposition." The room trembled. I stumbled back, but the floor stayed beneath me. Just barely. The walls began to flake, pieces of wallpaper drifting like ash. The window darkened, and outside was no sky, no ground. Just that burnt orange void, blinking slow and steady. The other Carter grinned. Not wide, not manic. Just enough to stretch the corners of his mouth unnaturally. "I've seen what's coming," he said. "You're not asleep. You're trapped. And you've been here for weeks." He reached out, and when his hand touched mine, I saw it. Images burning behind my eyes. My car parked sideways on the side of the road, driver's door hanging open. A nurse shaking her head in a dim hospital hallway. My brain, lit up on a scan like a flare, riddled with fevered neural storms. The void always blinking. "Stop," I said. "You're trying," he replied. "But the problem is in the core. Your sleep doesn't work anymore. Your brain is overheating itself to death, and no one knows why. Not the doctors. Not even you. But I do." He leaned close. "It's me," I screamed. Not in fear, but in rejection. I shoved him back. He didn't resist. He collapsed like paper. Folded. Crumpled. And the room collapsed with him. The floor gave out. The walls curled inward. The window shattered in reverse, sucking glass back into the frame like time was undoing itself. And I fell again. Fell through memory. Through identity. Through every choice that ever brought me to this exact moment. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the desert road. Engine off. Hazard lights flashing. Night stretched out around me like a curtain. In the sky above, the stars were blinking. Not twinkling. Blinking. One by one they winked out. Part 4. Signal loss. I must have blacked out. Or maybe I never woke up at all. All I know is this: I opened my eyes and the world around me felt wrong. It looked the same, distant cacti silhouetted against a purpling sky, the soft ping of metal cooling on my car hood, but something deeper had shifted. The night had weight. Not just darkness, but pressure. Like gravity had turned inward, dragging everything toward my chest. I started the engine. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Every part of me screamed run, but I didn't know from what or where to. I headed for the only place that felt real anymore. It took me 23 minutes to reach the urgent care clinic near my apartment. I don't remember making the turns. Don't remember parking. Just being there suddenly under flickering fluorescent lights. The receptionist's voice was too loud, too clear. "Can I help you?" I stared at her blankly. I couldn't remember how language worked. "Sir?" "My brain," I said finally. "Something's wrong. I need someone." She blinked. "You'll need to fill out some forms." "No," I snapped. "I need a scan. An MRI. Or a CAT scan. I think something's breaking down. I'm seeing things. Hearing things. I don't sleep. When I do, I don't wake up the same. Please." She froze. Not in fear. Not in confusion. Just froze. Mid-breath. Mid-expression. Like a video paused. "Ma'am?" She didn't blink. I stepped closer. She was breathing, but wrong. Rhythmic. Mechanical. Behind the counter, the walls were melting. Not literally, but they shimmered, like pixels under a cracked screen. The printer jammed, and instead of a beeping alert, it screamed. A low, distorted noise like a dial-up modem drowning in syrup. I backed away. Everyone in the waiting room turned toward me. At once, every face blank, every body still, except their eyes, all fixed on me, like they were waiting for me to remember something. I bolted, ran out the doors into the parking lot. My car was gone. Not stolen, never there. The space it should have been was empty, but the asphalt was still warm, as if it had only just left. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One notification. Unknown number. The loop resets at 3:11 a.m. I stared at it, blood draining from my face. That was the same time I'd woken up the night of the first blink. The same time every dream started twisting. The same number on that damn door. 0. I dropped the phone. It shattered like glass. But the pieces were too sharp, like obsidian, not plastic. Each one reflected a different version of me. Me screaming. Me sleeping. Me with no eyes. I backed away. And behind me, there it was. The door again. Standing alone in the middle of the lot. Freestanding. No hinges. No frame. Just that same green paint, the rusted brass knob, and the number 0. This time the door opened on its own. And inside was the hospital. Not the urgent care. A real hospital. Linoleum floors. Quiet hallways. 2 white lights. But empty. No nurses. No doctors. No machines beeping. Just silence. I stepped inside. Every footstep echoed like it belonged to someone else. Down one hall, I heard whispering. Dozens of voices murmuring at once, overlapping and bleeding together. He's awake again? No, not yet, he's stuck. Brain temperature, neural swelling, another loop. I followed the sound until I reached a room labeled Neuro Observation 7B. Inside was a hospital bed. And in it, me. Tubes snaked from my arms. Electrodes glued to my temples. My face slack, eyes moving under closed lids. A screen beside the bed pulsed with red lines and incomprehensible data. And at the foot of the bed stood the figure. That same figure from the desert. Taller now. Clear. Wrapped in a cloak that seemed stitched from shadows. No face. No hands. Just presence. You shouldn't have come here, it said. Its voice wasn't loud. It was final. Where am I? I asked. This is the last signal your brain can project before collapse. A visualization of your condition. You mean I'm dreaming? No. Its head tilted. You're remembering. Poorly. I reached out, wanted to grab it, shake it, demand answers, but my hand passed through its shape like smoke. It didn't move, but the lights behind it began to flicker. Red, orange, black. The blinking again. The loop resets at 3:11, it said. But every loop costs you something. Memory, language, identity. Soon there'll be nothing left to return to. I screamed. Then help me. The figure said nothing, and the lights blinked. Once, twice. I was on the road again. Hazards flashing. Sky blinking. Radio dead. But this time something was different. The desert ahead was crowded. Thousands of doors standing upright in the sand. All green. All marked with 0. Waiting. Part 5. The Door Maze. I stood in the sand, breath short, surrounded by doors. Each one identical, green, rusted, freestanding, marked with a brass 0. No hinges. No walls. Just thousands of doors stretching to the horizon like tombstones in an unmarked grave. There was no wind. No stars. The blinking sky above pulsed in irregular beats, like the failing rhythm of a dying heart. And somewhere beyond the sea of doors, I knew something waited. Watching. Measuring. I started walking. Every step sank slightly into the sand, but there were no tracks. I looked behind me after a few dozen paces and saw only pristine surface. No footsteps. No evidence I had moved at all. The doors didn't make sense. Some had padlocks. Others were slightly ajar. One had breath fogging the glass pane, even though I couldn't see anyone on the other side. I kept walking until one of the doors called to me. Not with a voice. With familiarity. Its handle was warm. Worn down in a way I recognized without knowing why. I opened it. Inside was my childhood kitchen. Not a replica. The real thing. The late 90s wallpaper with tiny sunflowers. The dent in the refrigerator from where I'd kicked a soccer ball into it. the table with a leg shorter than the others, and my mom back to me humming a song I hadn't heard in 20 years. My mouth went dry. "Mom?" She turned. Her face was wrong. Too smooth. No wrinkles. No age. Like a mannequin wearing her voice. "Carter," she said. "Come sit. You're just in time for breakfast." I didn't move. This was a test. A trap. The real her had been gone for years. Cancer. Quiet. Long. I'd made peace with that. Mostly. "Sit, sweetheart." I stepped back. She smiled. And it cracked. Not metaphorically. Her skin literally split at the corners, revealing nothing underneath. Just hollow dark. The kitchen shivered. Plates began to warp on the shelves. A hum vibrated through the walls, climbing higher in pitch with every breath. "You should have stayed asleep," she whispered. I turned and ran through the door. Back in the desert. Sky blinking. All the doors were watching me now. That sounds insane, I know. But it was the feeling, like being the only moving thing in a graveyard full of eyes. I chose another door. This one was red. The only one that wasn't green. The handle was ice cold. I opened it. Inside was a hospital hallway. But not like before. This one was tilted. Like someone had picked it up and twisted it just enough to make walking impossible. The floor buzzed with static. The walls breathed. I stepped in and nearly collapsed. My vision pulsed. The hallway ahead led to one door. Just one. With no number. I crawled to it. Each inch felt like my bones were aging in reverse, collapsing in on themselves, softening like wax in heat. I reached the door and opened it. And inside was me. Again. Sitting at a desk. Bank files open. Screen flickering. I was typing something over and over into the notes field. The loop resets at 3:11. The loop resets at 3:11. The loop resets at 3:11. He didn't look up. I reached out and touched his shoulder. He blinked, turned, and his face was gone. No eyes, no mouth, just flesh stretched smooth like someone forgot to carve features. He screamed, without a mouth, and the world shattered. Back in the desert again. But now the doors were closing. One by one. Fast. Slamming shut with a mechanical violence that shook the ground. I ran. Not toward a door, but away. From what I didn't know. Until I saw it. The thing. The figure in the cloak. But it wasn't still anymore. It was moving. Slow. Deliberate. Its feet didn't touch the sand. Its shadow came first, stretching impossibly long across the desert and reaching for me. It raised its arm. And all the doors stopped moving. Then, in a voice that came from behind my own ears, it said, "The test is over." Everything blinked, and I was in a chair. In a white room. Wires on my scalp. A humming in my skull. Across from me sat a man in a lab coat watching a monitor. His eyes were bloodshot. "You came back," he whispered. Where am I?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned the monitor toward me. It showed brain activity, spikes, dips, storm-like patterns. "Your mind created thousands of branching simulations, but only one version of you found the way back." He looked me dead in the eyes. "We don't know what's happening. You're the only patient whose consciousness reassembled." I wanted to speak, but instead I blinked, and the world blinked with me. Part 6. The Parasite Beneath Thought. I blinked, and the world blinked back. For a moment, just one, everything seemed fine. White walls, medical monitors, the quiet hum of fluorescent lights overhead, a smell like antiseptic and dust. I was back in the real world. I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't, because in the far corner of the room, the door was waiting. Same shade of green, same brass handle, same number, 0. The man in the lab coat, he had a name tag this time, Dr. Alan Miles, noticed me staring. "You still see it, don't you?" I nodded slowly. His face didn't move, but something in his eyes went dim like a pilot light flickering out. You've been in and out for weeks, he said. Most of your consciousness was locked in recursive simulation. A dream loop designed by your own brain to protect itself. I opened my mouth. My throat ached like I hadn't used it in years. Protect itself? From what? Dr. Miles stood, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a file, too thick to be one person's medical history. He dropped it on the table beside me. Something we've never seen before. He opened to the first page. There were diagrams, brain scans, abstract sketches, a log of strange phrases, orange sky like skin. The loop doesn't reset, it erodes. There is a watcher beneath the folds. My voice cracked. What does that mean? He flipped to the next page. A high-resolution scan of my brain. There was a shape inside it. Not a tumor. Not a lesion. A structure. Delicate. Intricate. Intentional. We thought it was a hallucination, he said. But it's not. It's real. Some kind of neural pattern forming on its own. Not organic, but organized. He paused. Like a signal that's always been there, just waiting for the right mind to receive it. My body went cold. You're saying something? Put this in me? No, he shook his head. We think it was always there. He looked at me. Maybe in everyone. I stared at the scan. At the spiral forming in the folds of my brain. At the shape that shouldn't exist. Something about it made my stomach churn. Like looking into an optical illusion that sees you back. That night, if it was night, I dreamed again. But this time it wasn't the desert. It was underneath. A vast cavern of bone and static. Endless tunnels branching like neurons. Pale white arches dripping with some fluid that didn't glisten. It absorbed light. In the center, sitting on a throne of fused rib cages, was the figure. Not cloaked this time. It was naked thought. A humanoid shape made of electrical arcs, neurons, and flickering data. Its face pulsed between every person I'd ever known. My mother. Myself. Dr. Miles. The faceless Carter. It spoke. I am the blink between your thoughts. I couldn't run. Couldn't move. It raised one hand and the walls of the cavern lit up with scenes. People. Thousands of them. All dreaming. Trapped. Screaming in silence. Caught in loops of childhood homes, hospital beds, desert roads. This is not illness, it said. This is inheritance. It stepped down from its throne, and the entire cavern twitched like a muscle. You mistake your nightmares for warnings, it said. They are rememberings. I managed to whisper. Of what? It tilted its head. Before humans dreamed in sleep, they dreamed in code. Before fire, they remembered the void. I felt something sliding behind my eyes. You've begun to see the lattice, it said. The structure that holds thought in place. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. What do you want from me? It approached. You already gave it. It touched my chest, and I remembered, all at once like a flood behind the eyes. The accident. Not recent. Years ago. I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. Hit a guardrail. Minor damage, I thought. But something inside me broke. The dream started soon after. The headaches. The sense of watching. And slowly the thing began to grow in the gap, nesting in the folds of my brain. A presence without substance. A parasite without mass. Feeding on repetition. On cycles. On thought. I woke up screaming. Dr. Miles was gone. The lights were out. The machines were flatlining. And in the dark, on the wall opposite my bed, the door stood open. A soft wind blew in, but I knew there was no outside, only the structure, and it was waiting. Part 7, The Lattice. I stepped through the door, but there was no threshold, no transition, no line dividing the hospital room from what came next. Just a moment of light, then nothing. No floor, no ceiling, no sound, only sensation like falling sideways through your own thoughts. Colors bled into one another, but not with any warmth. It was sterile, clinical, like brain scans painted across infinite glass. Then the lattice took shape. Imagine a spiderweb made from memory. Now imagine it humming. Strands stretched in every direction, threads of time flickering with motion. Each junction a moment, each pulse a decision. They glowed faintly, scenes from my life. Some vivid, others corroded like tapes left in the sun. I reached toward one thread and was pulled in. Suddenly I was 12 years old, sitting on my childhood porch, rain hitting the tin roof. A lemon ice pop in one hand, my father's voice somewhere behind me. For a heartbeat it felt safe. Then the world shook. The memory jerked, colors bleeding out, and the ice pop began to melt backwards, climbing up the stick, reforming like time was reversing. The porch faded, and I was back in the lattice. Another thread called to me. This time I saw myself alone in college. Late at night, eyes bloodshot from too many screens, heartbeat racing from too much caffeine. I was working, coding, stress piling, but someone was standing behind me. A man in a long coat, no face. He whispered something and my past self didn't notice. But I did. "I've always lived here," the voice said. I screamed and tore myself from the thread, back into the web. I tried to speak, but my voice came out fragmented. Not language, just sound. A voice answered me, not with words but with pressure. A presence rippling through the structure like sonar. The watcher, the parasite, the architect. It bloomed into the lattice like cancerous geometry. "You navigate your mind like it's a hallway," it pulsed, "but it is a cathedral built on trauma." Each word rang like a bell behind my ribs. "You created this." "No," I choked. I didn't want this." "You fed it. You repeated. You obeyed the cycle. You saw the blink and followed it inward. Its form grew, massive and non-Euclidean. Faces stretched across its surface. My face. Dozens of them. This is why the others rot in silence. But you see. A thread beneath me snapped. The lattice convulsed. Scenes fractured. My body convulsing in a hospital bed. Dr. Miles shouting orders. Static pouring from every screen in the building. The doors. All of them. Closing. I reached for an anchor. Something real. And I found it. Emily. I hadn't thought of her in years. We were together once. Briefly. Quietly. Before I learned to push people away in favor of solitude and spreadsheets. She had a laugh like summer light through a windshield. I gripped the memory of her hand. The lattice buckled. "Fascinating," the watcher hissed. "You reach for the living, but you have not earned them." It surged toward me, its limbs branching into patterns too dense for eyes to process. My chest burned. The lines of the lattice twisted, now forming a choice. Two paths. One toward a door. Green. Marked 0. The other toward a black void where the watcher stood. No words. Just implication. Give in. Forget. Become part of the cycle forever. Skip. I chose the door. I ran. The lattice screamed behind me, thousands of voices shouting fragments of my own life, twisted into taunts. "You always leave. She never loved you. The road was your fault. There was never a cure." I reached the door. I flung it open and found myself in a hallway. Not a dream hallway. The hallway. My apartment. At night. Still. Quiet. My front door closed. My bedroom behind me. The green door gone. The blinking stopped. I collapsed. Not from exhaustion. From sheer relief. I cried for the first time in years. And when I fell asleep that night, there was no desert, no watcher, no doors, just dark and silence. But silence isn't always safety, because in the morning, there was a new message on my phone, one I didn't remember receiving, from unknown. "See you at 3:11. Part 8, 3:11. 3 days. That's how long it's been since the lattice broke. since the sky stopped blinking, since I felt anything that wasn't fear. The world hasn't changed, but I have. I walk through it differently now. Not slower, not faster. Just carefully. Like everything is a mirror and I'm terrified to see what's behind the glass. I went back to work. Sort of. My desk was still there. My login still worked. My coworkers offered awkward smiles, small nods, no questions. As if I'd never left. As if the time I spent lost inside that recursive nightmare, weeks, maybe longer, was just a software update they slept through. I tried asking one of them, Nathan, the guy 2 cubes down, if he'd noticed anything weird. He said, "Weird how?" I opened my mouth, closed it. "It's nothing," I muttered. "Sleep deprivation, probably." He nodded too quickly, like someone who had also seen something and chose not to. The first night back in my apartment, I slept with every light on. No blinking, no doors, no sand beneath my bed. When I woke up, it was 7:26 a.m. Safe, alive, normal. I wanted to believe it. I needed to believe it. But hope is a drug with a brutal come down. And paranoia? That's the hangover. Day 4, I started seeing reflections that weren't mine. Not all the time. Just glimpses. The window above my kitchen sink reflected a man shaving. But I wasn't holding a razor. The microwave door caught me frowning, but I hadn't moved my face. And the worst one? The mirror. There was no blink. But my reflection smiled when I didn't. I went to a therapist. She was kind, patient, professional. She listened as I explained everything. The dreams, the doors, the sky, the structure. She didn't laugh, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she folded her hands and asked, "Do you believe you're still inside it?" I paused, and for the first time since all of this started, I gave the most honest answer I could. "I don't know." She prescribed me antipsychotics. Small white pills that made the world slow down just enough to feel manageable. I didn't take them. Not because I didn't want to get better, but because I didn't trust what better meant anymore. That night I went for a drive. Out past the edge of town. Past the last gas station. Past the last streetlight. To the place where the desert begins and time seems to hesitate. The road was empty. The sky was clear. No blinking. I pulled over and sat on the hood of my car, just listening. Not for voices. Not for static. Just for the sound of something true. And for a while I heard nothing. It was peaceful. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. One new message. Unknown number. "You're not the first. You're not the last. You're just the first to leave the door open." I stared at it for a long time. Then the screen flickered. The clock reset. 3:11 a.m. I looked up, and in the rearview mirror, just barely, I saw a sliver of green in the darkness behind me. A door. Waiting. I don't know if I ever escaped. I don't know if this world is after or just another version within. But I do know this. Somewhere beneath thought, beneath memory, beneath everything, the lattice breathes, and it remembers who looks back.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.